The life you're about to live is that of a medieval assassin. You were born in the mountains of 12th century Syria, near the Eagle's Nest fortress of Alamut. Your father was a guard of the fortress, and your mother a weaver in the village below. When you were 6, Crusader cavalry raided your village without warning. They burned your home and slaughtered your mother. You hid in a well, listening to the screams outside, the whole night through. When your father rushed down from the fortress the next morning, you were the only one he found alive. Your father brought you inside the fortress. From then on, you grew up in this eagle's nest. Its master was a mysterious leader known as the Old Man of the Mountain, who commanded an organization that struck terror across the entire Middle East, the Assassins. At 8, you began training alongside the other chosen children. Every dawn you scaled cliff faces. By day you drilled with blades and bare fists. By night you studied languages and the art of disguise. Your instructor said, "You must become shadows, approach your target without a sound, then vanish." The most terrifying lesson was called the leap of faith. Your instructor made you stand at the cliff's edge, a valley plunging hundreds of feet below. He said, "Jump." You said you'd die. He said, "If your faith is true enough, God will catch you." You closed your eyes and leaped, and landed on a hidden bed of hay below. At 14, you completed your training. At the initiation ceremony, the Old Man of the Mountain himself placed a white hood upon your head and pressed a short dagger into your hands. He looked into your eyes and said, "From this day forward, you are my blade. Your enemy is the enemy of the faith." Your first assignment was to assassinate a local lord who had conspired with the Crusaders. You posed as a merchant and infiltrated his castle, serving wine at his banquets for 3 days. On the 4th night, you struck while he sat alone in his study. One slash across the throat, clean and swift. After the kill, you leapt from the window and dissolved into the night. The next day, the entire castle erupted in chaos, but no one knew who the killer was. You were already in a village 30 li away, calmly sipping tea. Between 18 and 20, you completed 6 assassinations in succession. Your technique grew ever more refined. Some preferred poison, others the crossbow, but you always favored your short dagger. You relished the intimacy of it, watching the fear in your target's eyes slowly fade to nothing. You began to earn a name within the order. They called you the Ghost because you never left a trace. The Old Man of the Mountain trusted you more and more, assigning you the most dangerous missions. At 22, you received your greatest assignment. The target was a high-ranking Crusader commander stationed in the city of Acre, a man who had massacred over 1,000 Muslim civilians. The old man said, "His life is the finest offering you can lay upon your mother's memory." You spent 2 months infiltrating Acre. Disguised as a Persian spice merchant, you opened a shop in the city. Day after day, you observed the commander's travel routes, the number of his guards, his daily habits. Like a spider, you patiently wove your web. On the 50th day in Acre, your moment finally came. The commander was heading to the cathedral for Massachusetts. You had hidden inside the confessional beforehand. As he passed, you burst from behind the curtain and drove your dagger into his throat. This time, you did not escape cleanly. Guards sealed every exit of the cathedral. You took 3 wounds and only broke free by scaling the walls and hurling yourself into the sea. You drifted in the salt water all night, and when a fishing boat pulled you out, you were barely clinging to life. It took 3 months to heal. When you returned to the fortress, the old man came to see you in person. He said, "You did well, but you must learn to withdraw in one piece. A dead assassin is of no use to the order." At 25, you were promoted to Dai, captain of an assassin cell. Under your command were 12 young Fidai, and it fell to you to train them and lead them on missions. You discovered that teaching others to kill was far harder than killing yourself. Your training methods were different from anyone else's. You didn't just teach them to kill, you taught them how to survive. You told them, the finest assassination is not the swiftest strike, but the one after which you still come home alive. At 28, the Mongols came. The armies of Genghis Khan swept across Central Asia like a flood. The old man tried to negotiate, but the Mongols' answer was a siege army at the gates. You fought in the defense of Alamut. The eagle's nest was built upon sheer cliffs, easy to defend and hard to take. But the Mongols had endless men and infinite patience. They laid siege for 3 full months until the fortress's food nearly ran out. The old man made his final decision: surrender. He said, "The fortress can fall, but our people must not all die here. The order must live on." You knelt before him and wept. It was the first time you had cried since becoming an assassin. After the surrender, the Mongols tore down Alamut's walls and burned every manuscript within. You watched with your own eyes as the eagle's nest where you grew up crumbled to ruins. But you and a handful of brothers had been sent out before the fall, carrying the order's secrets and funds, scattering into cities across the land. You brought 5 men to Damascus. You were no longer an order housed in a fortress. You had become ghosts hiding among the crowds. You opened a bookshop as cover, selling books by day and contacting scattered brothers by night. After 35, you rarely took a life with your own hands. You became a planner and a handler. Occasionally someone offered a fortune to hire your men for an assassination. You would carefully weigh the risks before accepting. You were no longer the hate-filled boy you once were. At 40, word reached you that the last surviving member of the Crusader order that had massacred your village, an aged knight, was living in a monastery in Tripoli. You hesitated for a long time, but in the end decided to go yourself. You found the old knight. He was blind in one eye and needed a cane to walk. You stood before him, dagger in hand. But he raised his head, looked at you, and said in Arabic, "I know why you've come." Then he closed his eyes. You stood there for a long time with your dagger raised, and in the end you sheathed it. You turned and walked away. You didn't know why. Perhaps it was because the hatred had burned in you for over 30 years, and you were finally exhausted. Perhaps it was because in his face, you saw the same weariness you carried in your own. After 50, you lived quietly in Damascus. Your bookshop became the favorite gathering place for the city's scholars. No one knew that this kindly old bookseller had once been the ghost who struck terror across the entire Middle East. One night in your 58th year, you sat in the courtyard behind your shop, gazing at the stars. You remembered the eagle's nest of Alamut, the days of leaping from cliffs, the people you had killed, and the one you had spared. Your life was like that dagger, once razor-sharp, now sheathed at last. This has been your life simulation, the life of a medieval assassin. You were born in hatred, raised in slaughter, but in the end you chose to let go. In an age of blades and bloodshed, perhaps this was the finest ending an assassin could give himself.